Earlier this year I had the pleasure of taking part in the Learning Network's Mastery Day event in Chester, which covered an array of topics all relating to e-learning development. During my mini workshop session, I got to showcase some of the interactive animation capabilities of GSAP in Articulate Storyline 360, which was a lot of fun. My session was then followed by Tom McDowell, who guided everyone through a great workflow for designing and developing branching pathways in Storyline and a free online tool called Twine, which I found easy to work with and surprisingly comprehensive. The culmination of the adventure game that we built was to bring the user to a results screen here, where 3 different percentage scores would be shown for either adventure, safety, or treasure, depending on the decisions that the user made during their personal quest. And this gave me an idea that I tried to get working on the spot to have these figures be represented with a bar chart using Storyline shapes. The plan being to have each rectangle shape sitting on its own layer set to play for 1 second, and using a JavaScript function that would take the score value to calculate a moment for each layer's timeline to stop. So for example, if the score was 75%, then the timeline revealing the shape would end at 0.75 seconds. And as you can see, this kind of works, but in general I found that timeline-based actions are tricky to deliver consistently accurate results for all users. But anyway, I've kept on working away at this whenever I could, and now I have prepared what I think is a great method for building and animating bar charts within Articulate Storyline 360, using any styling that you want to have on the slide, and for the bars. These are just standard Storyline rectangle shapes, as you can see, and the animation itself is driven entirely by number variables, which can be dynamically set during the activity. And also, if we want to set a different maximum value for the chart, then we can set that right here, and the bar lengths will adapt based on the figure we input. All of this is achieved using a single execute JavaScript trigger, which we run right at the start of the timeline. And I'd like to walk you through writing that JavaScript function in order for you to understand how it works and what each line of code does, so this is a great project to learn from if you're looking to better understand JavaScript's influence in Storyline. Hi, my name's Chris from Discovery Learning, and you are watching the Storyline Magic series for Articulate Storyline 360 developers. So to get started, I'm going to be using the same results slide design that I created during Tom's workshop, but feel free to create any sort of style that you want for your own graph. The most important thing is that you have 3 tall rectangle shapes set up on the slide, and also that you have entered a unique alternative text value for each shape to use as an identifier later on in our code. You'll notice actually that in Storyline we can include dynamic variable values as part of any alternative text value, so if the shape is intended to portray different information to the user based on a variable's value, then we can include that with the percentage symbol values technique for placing variables into a project. Okay, with those 3 shapes in place, let's now create an execute JavaScript trigger when the timeline starts on this slide. The first thing I'm going to do is bring into my script all of the project variables that I need to work with, so I'll declare a variable for adventure, safety, and treasure. We can use the built-in getVar method, and within parentheses and double quotes, we just need to type the name of the variable as it is set in Storyline, making sure the casing matches exactly for all letters. Also, I'm going to have my maximum chart value be set dynamically using a Storyline variable, so let's also bring that in. Next, what we're going to do is target the rectangle shapes on the slide by using the alternative text values that we set up for each shape, or at least one specific word that is unique to each of them. We'll start with the adventure bar, and I'll type document.querySelector with a capital S, and within parentheses, single quotes, and square brackets, the attribute name data-acc-text, followed by an asterisk and equal sign, which tells the method that we want to check for the existence of the following string within an object and return that object if found. Therefore, I can type the word adventure in here with a capital A, as that will return the adventure bar shapes div object to be assigned to this variable. Let's repeat that step, this time for targeting the safety rectangle shape and the treasure rectangle shape. Now, in order to know just how much length for each bar we want to have animate, we need to work with both our attribute name and the maximum value to discover what this is as a percentage. So we'll type var adventure% equals, and in parentheses, adventure over max value multiplied by 100. End that line with a semicolon. So if the adventure value was 100 and the max value was 200, for example, then this calculation would produce 50, as the adventure bar in this case would need to animate 50% of the way up the chart. Let's reproduce that line of code and create a variable for the safety% and treasure% values, updating the variable name each time here. Now we're ready to produce our block of code that is going to work with the values we've produced so far to manipulate each bar. In order to do that, what I'm going to do is wrap my code within a function, which means that rather than typing out lots of code to control each bar's animation, I can just type the instructions once within the function and then call the function 3 times, passing in the variables for each individual rectangle shape. I'll start by declaring my function by typing the word function, followed by a name, which I'll set as animateBar. Then, within the argument parentheses for the function, I can declare the values that we'd be passing into the function each time it is being called. So in our case, we'd want to include the bar element name and also the percentage value. Anything we now type within these brackets is the code block that will run whenever our function is called. Let's take a break here and quickly review just how we are going to control the sizing of each bar on the slide with our JavaScript code. If we run the project without any JavaScript trigger taking place and review the styling that is applied to the containing div tag for each shape, you'll see that Storyline sets up a transform style rule that controls the width and height, rotation, and scaling value of the object. The scale value is a decimal value set between 0 and 1, with the first number being the width and the second number the height. If we change the second number to 0.5, for example, in the inspector view here, you'll see that the shape updates itself to be 50% of its original height. You'll notice though that the shape resizes itself from the center in this case, and that's because the transform origin value is dynamically set to be a pixel value of where the object is located on the slide. But if we change this to bottom, then now the transform settings are applied from the bottom of the object, which is what we need in our case. So back in our code, let's first convert the percentage height value of the rectangle shape we want to set for each bar into a decimal value that we can work with in CSS. We can do this by simply dividing the percentage value by 100. Now, because we are only interested in changing the scale value of the transform property for each shape, we don't want our originating positional or rotational values to be modified in any way by what we are doing in our code. So what we need to do is actually get the transform values of each shape as they exist when the code is first ran. And then a little later in the code, we'll change just the scale value, bringing in our own custom decimal value that we just created, and then setting that using a CSS style rule within our function. So I will type var computed style equals get computed style with a capital C and a capital S, and in parentheses, bar element with a capital E. End that line with a semicolon. This delivers to me all of the style values set for the bar element object in my document, but I'm only interested in working with the transform property, so I'll now type var existing transform equals computed style with a capital S dot transform, and end that line with a semicolon. If you want to, at this moment, we can print that value to the browser console. And then if we call the function by bringing in the adventure bar shape and its corresponding percentage value into the function, then by running this, we should see in the inspector console here the specific values being returned. which the getComputerStar method converts to a matrix value to represent all transform property values for the object. We'll be able to work with this though as is to concatenate our custom scale property to it as part of our JavaScript function. So let's do that now by typing the following: bar element dot style dot transform equals existing transform, and then a plus symbol, and in single quotes, scale y with a capital Y, and in parentheses, and in single quotes once again, another plus symbol, and scale y value with a capital Y and capital V, and a plus symbol to end. Take a look at the result in the preview panel. It's definitely working, but remember earlier we said we'd also need to adjust the transform origin to be the bottom of the shape. So let's add to our code bar element dot style dot transform origin with a capital O equals, and in single quotes, bottom, and end that line with a semicolon. Okay, that's looking great. We could stop here and call it a day, but of course it would be much nicer to see the bars animate to their final lengths when the slide starts. So to do that, just above the transform origin setting here, so that this happens before the final scale value is set below here, I will type bar element dot style dot transform equals existing transform with a capital T plus, and in single quotes, scale y with a capital Y, and in parentheses, 0, and end that line with a semicolon. I've done this because I want my bar shape to start its life at 0% length in order to work its way up to the scale y value we've added here. Now, between the value being set here to 0 and then here set to the bar's final length, the user isn't actually going to see anything happen because the bar's final length setting change will take place almost immediately after the bar length was set to 0. So we want to apply some additional CSS styling rules which we have available to us as part of the CSS3 language specification, giving us the ability to create animation tweens between different style rules that we create. First, I will type bar element dot offset height with a capital H and a semicolon, which initiates a reflow ensuring the transition starts from the initial state. Then I will create my transition values in CSS by typing bar element dot style dot transition property with a capital P equals, and in single quotes, transform, and a semicolon. Then on the next line, bar element dot style dot transition duration with a capital D equals, and in single quotes, 1s, meaning 1 second, and a semicolon. And on the next line, bar element dot style dot transition timing function with a capital T and a capital F equals, and in single quotes, ease hyphen out, and end that line with a semicolon. Feel free to tweak any of these values or try any of the transition timing functions which you can find listed on the MDN WebDocs website for controlling the transition effect. With that, our code should be ready to go for dynamically animating the length of all bars. Let's make sure to call the function 2 more times so that all 3 bars animate at the same moment. And let's preview the slide. And there we have it, a dynamic bar chart built-in storyline, which from this moment forward we can control using just the project variables that we have created in our project. Now you may be interested in displaying the value of the bar over the bar itself by having the variable reference be written into the bar shape. By doing this, the text within the containing div object is going to be squashed in the same process as what is happening to the containing rectangle shape. So to prevent that happening, we would want to override the effect, but just on the text area itself. So go back into our code and I'll show you how we can achieve that. First, we need to use another querySelector in order to target the text tag that Storyline creates within our rectangle shape. So I'll type var text equals bar element dot querySelector with a capital S and in parentheses and single quotes text, and end that line with a semicolon. And then we want to use some maths to invert the scale value that had been applied to the text by the code above. We can do that by first creating a new variable with the value being 1 over the scale y value. So let's type var inverse scale y equals 1 / scale y value, and end that line with a semicolon. And then using a transform style property, setting a new scale y value for the text object. Text.style.transform equals, and in single quotes, scale y with a capital Y, and in parentheses, and open close single quotes once again, a plus symbol, followed by inverse scale y, and another plus symbol. And make sure to end that line with a semicolon. Okay, let's hit the OK button now and preview the result. And there we have it. You can now reuse this as a template for any future projects where you might wish to include a dynamically generated bar chart on your slide. And as you can see, this will also render correctly across all different screen sizes. Have a go at creating this effect in your own Articulate Storyline projects. And if you'd like to continue developing your skills, then head on over to the Discover eLearning website, where you'll find our Advanced eLearning Developer Series courses, featuring a growing number of full-length training courses built for Storyline professionals. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this coming soon. Bye for now.